Heavenly Father, we ask that you join us in our class today. We ask for a pouring of the Holy Spirit. We're learning natural remedies. We've been learning at theory all week and a little bit more theory and then some practical application. Please be with each one of us. Much of this most of us know already, but it's good to remember how for when the day comes when we'll be using it along with the Gospel of the Three Angels message in the time of crisis. Bless our efforts. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. So, we're going to start hydro today. Everyone raise your hands who already has a good understanding on how to do basic hydrotherapy. Anyone else? How many? Is 1, 2? Just 2 hands, okay. 3? 4-ish? Okay. Well, I handed out 2 sets of notes, big packets. This is my hydrotherapy book. Everyone's got that. No, it's the other one. You don't have the picture. It starts on the table of contents.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, it's the big package, the table of contents. And then the other package of notes you've got is the introduction to hydrotherapy, which is just super elementary. It's just basic pictures. Just gives you some ideas. It's very, very elementary. It's got some pictures like that in there. Just how to do a cold bath, a neutral bath, and so on. So this is just for your files and as you want to use it throughout your days. But I want to look at a little bit of hydro theory, just explaining the physiology of it. Because I really, at some point in my hour and a half, I want to just do a really quick demo on 2 treatments. So let's turn to page hang on a sec. Let's go to page, I think to page 9 is where we should start in the hydrotherapy book, like the big packet, with the one that starts with your table of contents, please. We'll start on page 9.
And that diabetes handout, is that going to be later or?
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, thank you. I also handed out a diabetes handout. Just stick that in your notes. We're not going to cover diabetes. I haven't got the time. Didn't have time during the week for theory for that. Okay. There was something I really wanted to look at, but actually let's start on, well, the history of hydrotherapy. I'm unsure about reading all of this. Let's just read a couple of them, not the majority of them, because I want to have more time for other stuff. Maybe the first paragraph on page 9 under the history of hydrotherapy. We'll just pick a few of them and go from there. Everyone's there. It says, the use of water in the treatment of disease is as the old practice of medicine. Records of the writing of Hippocrates indicates its use as early as 450 BC. It was used extensively in the Roman baths. Interest in hydrotherapy waned during the Dark Ages, it is interesting to know that in 1747, John Wesley had written a booklet entitled Primitive Physics, or Physics, I don't know how you say that, in which he discoursed on the use of water in treatment for many years. So it really goes back 450 BC disease, yeah. And back in the Roman times, yeah. In 1799, 1851, also, Vincent Priesnitz is known as the father of hydrotherapy. When he was a young man, he received a serious injury from a farm animal. Being given no hope of recovery by the physicians, he decided to use hydrotherapy on himself. As he had previously used on farm animals, he made a rapid recovery. Although uneducated, he established a hydrotherapy institute in Australia. Many came to learn his methods. During the 1850s, a number of water cure institutes were established in this country, being America. One of these was established in New Jersey by a Dr. Thatcher Troll. He was also the editor of a popular magazine entitled The Water Cure Journal. This magazine did much to educate lay people during the cause of disease and preference and simple measures to drugs. Anyways, moving down, Ellen White received a vision on health reform on June 6, 1863. And in 1865, James White became a patient at Dr. Jackson's place in Danville, New York. He was accompanied by his wife, that would be Ellen White. They received benefits from their treatments during their 3-month stay. In 1866, Adventists opened their first health facility in Western Health Reform Institute. And in 1876, Dr. John Kellogg, at the age of 24, became a superintendent in the institute. The name was soon changed to Battle Creek Medical and Surgical Sanitarium and was defined as a place where people learned to stay well. Rapidly became world famous. Dr. Kellogg wrote many books such as Rational Hydrotherapy. Okay, so that's a little bit of history. If you want to read any more of those, you can. The next page, page 11, Introduction to Hydrotherapy. Oh, I'm going to step away from the camera for a sec, sorry. Okay. The medical, the first quote at the top, Ministry of Healing, 145, paragraph 2. All gospel workers should know how to give simple treatments that do so much to relieve pain and remove disease. And we've gone over the next quote earlier in the week. The last sentence of that, well, pure air, sunlight, abstinence, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power, these are the true remedies. Every person should have a knowledge of nature's remedial agencies, physical therapy, the use of physical agents, water, light, electricity, massage, and exercise in the treatment of disease and trauma. And hydrotherapy, the use of water in any of these 3 forms, solid, liquid, or vapor, internally or externally in the treatment of disease or trauma. And here there's 12 properties of water on this list, and we'll cover it. I've just got a few off the internet to explain some of them that are a little thought-provoking at the end. Does anyone want to read a little bit of some of these properties of water, and we can explain the ones we don't know? Sure.
Properties of water: abundance, economy, availability, ease of application, it's non-irritating, even internally, physiological solvent.
Okay, yeah.
It's a proper density for buoyancy.
Do you know what that means? I'll explain that one. I'll look that one up.
Okay.
Natural buoyancy is a condition in which a physical body's average density is equal to the density of the fluid in which it is immersed. The buoyancy offsets the force of gravity that would otherwise cause the object to sink. So when you're in a swimming pool and you're floating in the water, that's your proper density for buoyancy in the water. Do you want to continue reading?
Water gives up heat rapidly, yet it doesn't cool too rapidly. Heat high heat capacity it has, and high latent heat, a proper viscosity.
Okay, hang on. Do you know, do you know the high latent heat, what that means? No? So I looked that one up as well. It says it's similarly, while ice melts, it remains at 0 Celsius or 32 Fahrenheit, and the liquid water is formed with the latent heat of fusion is also at 0. The heat of fusion of the water is 0, and then it goes about the calorie index for the changeover. So Wayne and I looked at this earlier, and he explained it quite well to me. It's at 0, so at freezing point, it's liquid still, and then that's when it goes into a solid because it's freezing. And then there's a formula involving a calorie exchange, which I don't have the chemistry to explain that. Does anyone else have the ability to explain, Kelly?
I studied it for 4 years in plumbing.
Cool.
But I don't remember it.
Okay, well, what do you know?
There is a formula,
Yeah.
and you use it to calculate how much energy is needed to churn water into ice or ice into water and into steam. And
Exactly.
how much energy is released and so on.
Right.
I don't remember the formula.
No, that's cool. And I have some of that information in these notes. We'll look at it briefly as well. Thank you for that. And then proper viscosity, the fluidity, I have that in here as well. It says the liquid on the right has a higher viscosity than the liquid on the left. The viscosity of a fluid is a measure of its resistance to a gradual deformation of shear stress or tensile stress. For liquids, it corresponds to the informal concept of thickness. For example, honey has a higher viscosity than water, or oil and water. And we know that oil, though thicker and seems heavier, yet it floats on top of water. That's what we're looking at, right?
That's specific gravity.
Okay. Do you have more information you want to add?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, viscosity has to do with, as it says, the ability of a liquid to deform. So certain types of oils could be more viscous than water. Like motor oil is more viscous than water.
Okay, and that just means it floats on top,
No,
or it
It
sinks?
just means that it's like honey is thick.
Yeah.
Ability to float.
Yeah. So, like
But honey
gasoline is
sinks.
very viscous, much more viscous than water.
Yeah.
But it floats on water.
Okay.
So it's nothing to do, that's specific gravity. It just has to do with the density of the object while it floats.
Right. Okay, thank you so much for adding that. And then number 12, it exists in 3 states at useful temperatures, and we're going to look at that. Liquid, solid, and gas. Thank you. Oh, wait. Okay, I'm not going to go over definitions. If you want to, you can, but it's basic. And we're not going to really study a lot of hydrotherapy anyway. We're just looking at the basics. Okay. The physics of heat. I'm on page 16, by the way. At the top it says, heat makes the particles of any substance separate slightly, thereby moving more freely. Heat before massage makes the body tissue more soft and pliable. For example, the skin expands, the muscle relaxes, and the blood vessels dilate. In general, heat expands all substances. So that's a real general statement. When you add something warm to something like body tissue, it softens it up and you can work it more easily. Same if you got a cold lump of Play-Doh in your hand, right? It's really hard, and the more you massage it and work it, it softens up and you can make any animal you want. Nearly all substances continue to contract under the influence of colds. And contracting is when it shrinks or gets harder and less pliable. But water, after cooling to 4 degrees Celsius, expands until it is frozen. So at freezing point, if that's 0, it expands into the freezing point. So from 4 degrees Celsius unto freezing. This is said to be the point of maximum density for the water. At this temperature, a given weight of water is crowned into the least possible space. This is the reason ice floats. The freezing point of water is either 32 Fahrenheit or 0 Celsius. Okay. And the boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius. And then here's the formula where your conversion formula from centigrade to Fahrenheit. I don't really want to go into that. When I worked in America at 2 clinics where I was doing hydro on people, I had to learn how to do Fahrenheit. And then when I came to Canada, my mind was stuck in Fahrenheit. And so I had to relearn how to do it in Celsius. So that's the formula. And I don't think that's that terribly important to go into, because we're Celsius in Canada, thankfully. Let's go to page 17. Are you Fahrenheit?
Raise up Fahrenheit.
Okay, maybe that's Eastern Canada. Page 17, we're going to look at the physical properties of water. And if anyone wants to take turns reading these verses or paragraphs slowly, and we can talk about them as we go through them. Do you want to read?
Sure. Specific.
Loud and slow.
Water is capable of absorbing and storing a large amount of heat, a larger amount, in fact, than any other substance. If a pound of water were to absorb from a pound of mercury enough heat to raise its own temperature 1 degree centigrade, the temperature of the mercury would drop 30 degrees centigrade. This means that the heat capacity of water is 30 times that of mercury. Water, therefore, has a capacity for absorbing and storing a great amount of heat, but these large quantities of heat which it may give off or take on do not greatly change its temperature.
Thanks. Does that make sense?
Right?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
The heat absorbing capacity of substances is called specific heat. Water has a high specific heat, and for this reason it is taken as the standard, and the amount of heat a gram of water absorbs or gives off in changing its temperature 1 degree centigrade is called a calorie. It is that large amount of heat that is stored in hot water, its high specific heat, that makes it especially valuable in applying heat to the body. The hot water not only stores up a great amount of heat, but it communicates this very readily to things with which it comes in contact.
Okay, so here it's giving you the breakdown of that formula into calorie in the change of temperature. Okay, and do you still want to read a little, or anyone else?
Conversely, cold water very readily absorbs heat from contact with other bodies. Hence, if applied to the human body, it very quickly cools the skin, adjacent tissues, and the blood currents. It is because water stores so much heat and gives it off so readily that it seems hotter or colder than other substances. Water exists in 3 states, namely solid, liquid, and gas, and it can be used in treatment in all these forms.
Okay, thank you. Latent heat or freezing, and we just talked about latent heat. Do you have any questions, anybody, so far, or comments? Pretty straightforward. Does it make sense? Okay. So latent heat or freezing, as interesting as it may seem, the water is lowering its temperature 1 degree Celsius, gives off so much heat. It is more interesting to learn the water in freezing gives nearly 80 times as much heat as in cooling, at cooling 1 degrees before the freezing point. I guess this is an explanation why when we go out on a cold day, we see the river and there's steam coming off of it, right? The water in the water is warmer than the air water, and therefore you've got that heat vaporizing off of it, the gas form, the steam. 1 gram of ice in melting with no change of temperature absorbs enough heat to raise a gram of water from 0 Celsius to 80 Celsius. Since the change of 1 Celsius in the temperature of 1 gram of water requires 1 calorie, or heat unit, rising the temperature 80 degrees Celsius requires 80 calories. Okay, that's pretty simple, hey? This number of heat units is taken on the melting of every gram of water, and yet no change in temperature occurs. This heat that does not appear by testing with a thermometer is called hidden on latent heat. The latent heat of freezing water is therefore said to be 80 calories. And latent heat or vaporization. In the boiling of 1 gram of water, a much greater amount of heat is made latent. The latent heat of boiling has been found to be 450 calories. When steam condenses, it gives off this heat. This is a phenomenon lies in the explanation of the fact of that of a Russian steam bath gives an intense heating effect. Much of the steam condenses and consequently gives off an enormous amount of heat. The intensity of burns produced by steam is readily understood when it is kept in mind that 450 times as much heat is given off when 1 gram of steam condenses on the skin, when 1 gram loses 1 degree in temperature. Makes sense? It's pretty wordy. But anyways, yeah, that's the physiology, basically, of the water properties. When you start doing the treatments and you're seeing the effects of really what it does physically to the body, that's what you're looking for the good results in the end. So maybe this just explains it more on page 18 with a bit of a diagram. The marked cooling of the body of ice and the evaporating wet sheet pack, that's an actual procedure for something, is due to the heat absorbed in the body by the melting of ice in one case and by the evaporation of water in the other. Thermic impressions. In order for water or any other substances to communicate heat to another body, it must for some time remain in contact with the body. This long contact is not necessarily to produce impressions of heat or cold. These are perceived instantly whenever the substance of temperature of which differs from that of the skin comes in contact with it. It is not by transfer by any large amount of heat, but because of the nerves that are stimulated, that sensation of heat or cold are produced. Sensations of heat arise when the substance in contact with the body has a temperature higher than that of the skin, and the sensation of cold results when the temperature of the substance that is lower of the skin. So really what this is saying, it was talking about a wet sheet pack. So your normal body temperature, what is that in Celsius? 38? 38?
No, 37.
Or 36. I think 36 and a half. And in Fahrenheit, it's 96 point something, 0.8. 98.6. So your body temperature, and then you're wrapped up in a cold, ice cold, wet sheet. Your body temperature is going to warm that up. And then you're going to produce a sweat and sweat out the toxins. And that treatment is excellent for alcohol poisoning or something like that. Or to induce sleepiness. A colic baby, a baby that's just crying and crying and crying, and they won't like it in the first, when you wrap them up in an ice cold wet blanket, or a sheet actually, and they'll probably scream more. But when their body temperature warms up that cold wet blanket, it will produce, the sweating to sweat out whatever irritants it might have, and then it will fall asleep and calm down. You might want to try it on yours. But they'll scream longer.
Before 9 p.m.
Effective for adults too?
Yeah, it's good.
They cry so much, so that might be a good one.
It really is a good treatment. I've had it done on me a few times. I like it. It's really nice. It's refreshing, once you start warming up the cold blanket.
You like the polar bear swim?
I've never done that. I wouldn't do that. Okay. I'll just leave it there for now because we get the gist of that, I'm hoping. So I'm on page 19. Hydrotherapy, physiological effects. Effects of hot and cold application. So it's 10, it's 11, 12. Prolonged, number one, okay, in that box on the top, you've got 3 columns. You've got stimulating, exhausting, and sedative. So with the 2 lines, you're going to look at either a very short, very hot, or short, very cold. And that's your stimulating effect. So that's going to bring all your blood vessels, the vessels to the surface, and that's where your skin is going to turn pink. And then you're exhausting, prolonged, very hot heat. And a treatment that we use with that is a hot blanket pack, and that helps with malaria patients or people that are under high fever and stress with fever. You want to break that fever with an exhausting treatment. And then your sedative is a prolonged moderate heat. And that's excuse me, sorry?
Sleep.
Yeah, that'll help you sleep, but it's also good for detoxifying or a Russian steam bath or something like that. Number 2 there, it says prolonged cold depresses body functions. Prolonged cold, so if you fall in a pond in the wintertime and it's icy, that prolonged cold, you're going to slow down, and it depresses your body functions. You're not going to have the ability to move around rapidly. Friction, rubbing, and percussion, rhythmic, vigorous tapping will intensify the effects of either hot or cold. Cold contracts the blood vessels, while heat will dilate or open the blood vessels. However, prolonged or severe cold could cause the cold to induce vasodilation. The colder the application, the greater the reaction. A warm bath relieves fatigue and promotes rest. It also produces dilation of the surface vessels and contraction to the vessels of the brain. A cold bath causes contraction of the vessels of the skin and dilation of the vessels of the brain. And then part B is the local effects of heat. Increases the local tissue metabolism, the chemical and physical process occurring. So that increases. So when you have the heat onto your tissue and your metabolism, that increases your physical process. Heat opens up the blood vessels, vasodilation. That are constrict from the stress and the local concentration of carbon dioxide, hydrogen, ion increases the local concentration of carbon dioxide, and hydrogen ion increases the local concentration of oxygen decreases. It's not finished yet. And the blood vessels open up to receive more oxygen, eliminate the excessive carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions. And we're going to see a picture in a page, and it shows you the physiology of what's being done with the heat application as it opens up your blood vessels, and it promotes the the moving of the blood. And if you remember also this week we looked at health of the blood, and if you got poor circulation in your lower extremities or fingers or whatever, your blood is thick and it's not moving properly, right? And it could be diseased and whatnot. By opening up these blood vessels, it promotes the blood to move. So we want to have all of our extremities warm. And if the blood is pooling in an area like cold feet, it's not alive, it's thick, it's gooey. So we first of all want to get our blood healthy, and then we want it to promote because it brings the healing properties around to the body, to the affected areas. So increases blood flow and oxygen is released from the red blood cells. Increases diaphoresis, which is sweating. Local amalgalesia and muscle relaxation. Heat over the lungs can increase cilia movements and thereby remove foreign particles. Mild heat over the kidneys can decrease high blood pressure. And then the local effects of cold constricts blood vessels, so it shrinks them, helps reduce swelling from sprains and stings, numbing from pain, reduces bradykinin, a pain chemical, decreases blood flow and relieves congestion. Numbing from, number 3, I missed it. Numbing from pain, reduce, oh yeah, I read that, sorry. Number 5, closes pores. Short cold is a tonic. And cold over the heart can slow down the rapid heart rate. Short cold over the chest can promote deeper respiration. So those are just some thoughts if you want to try to help yourself out. Page 20. General effects of heat. Vasodilation, so it opens up your blood vessels, and vasoconstriction was closing your blood vessels. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts or comments? No. Improves oxygen, so this is your general effects of heat. It improves oxygen delivery from the red blood cells. Increases your heart rate 6 beats per Fahrenheit, rise in temperature. And I was wondering if that was the same in Celsius, and I was looking for that last night, but I didn't find an answer, and I probably got sidetracked and forgot what I was doing, so I'm not sure if it's the same in Celsius. Increases respiratory rate, increases body temperature. It also increases the number of the mobility of the white blood cells, increases the chemical attraction of the white blood cells to the area of infection, and it increases the capture of harmful germs by the white blood cells.
So when you go have a cold or you have some problem going on, you go into a sauna or a steam room and you raise your body temperature, that's going to increase the activity of your white blood cells.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 different kinds here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
I
know that one goes out through your body and it detects if there's a problem. Once it's detected, another white blood cell comes and deals with the issue, and then the third one comes along and cleans it up. So,
yeah, and there's different, yeah. We talked about the glia cells that eat the dead and cleans up.
Oh, right.
Cleans up the thorns, right? The dead debris that when we have a negative feeling, we think positive. So the glia cells goes and cleans that up.
Isn't there 4 operations?
Yeah, there's
Just
4.
operations, though.
But I was just remembering the one because that was the whole point. And then you've got your 3 different things. It increases the mobility of the white bloods. It increases the chemical attraction. If there's an infection in the area, so the white blood cells are drawn to that. And this is when your blood vessels are opening up because of the heat. Mm-hmm. And then it increases the capture of the harmful germs and germs by the white blood cells. So it cleans up the area. It also increases perspiration. And general effects of cold. It constricts the blood vessels, slows the heart rate, decreases cutaneous sensation. What does that mean?
The skin.
Prickling?
The skin.
You can't feel the skin.
Okay, so it's the numbing effect? Okay, I should have looked that up. It decreases metabolism, slows blood flow, and decreases the respiratory rate. It's probably going to talk about the 3 forms of cold, I'm hoping, in here too. Okay, so effects of hydrotherapy on a muscle. It decreases tone, decreases the ability to work, decreases spasms and pains, and it increases circulation in the muscles. And the effects of cold on the muscle, it increases tone, greater endurance, less fatigue. Sometimes cold will aggravate a muscle spasm. However, an ice massage will many times help muscle strain and myositis. Okay, so there's a note on the bottom. Okay, so moving on. Does anyone else want to read a little bit?
Sure, I'll read. What do you want?
We're on the page of 21, top, the
On top?
effects of hydrotherapy and circulation.
Primary effects.
Yeah.
Vasoconstriction in the entire vascular bed lasting only seconds. Decreased blood flow. Can increase blood pressure. Increase in heart rate. Primary effects. Secondary effects. Vasodilation. Decreased blood pressure. Increased capillary pressure. Edema and swelling. Increased volume of part. Increased lymph flow.
So what we're looking for is when we do a treatment on someone, for whatever reason, this is what we're looking to achieve when a person is not well. And for whatever reason, like it could be, they have the flu, right? Or upper respiratory infection, or a sore throat, right? Or if you do a compress on the chest or on the elbow or whatever. This is the effects that we're hoping to gain or expecting to gain with the treatments. And
So if a person has a heart issue or on medication, then what?
yeah,
Because you get stimulating the circulation.
exactly. And the heart can start pulsating really fast. It's called something cardia, brachycardia. No, what did you say? Yeah, tachycardia. You would apply ice or something cold to slow it down.
Plus you'd ask the person, obviously, before you start doing this treatment.
Well, that's the whole point. There are contraindications, and I'm hoping we can cover some contraindications. Go ahead.
One of the interesting things I learned about, like it says it right here, vasoconstriction, how heat can, at first, constricts the circulation. Because you always think that it increases circulation, and it does, but initially it'll stem the flow. So, you know, in the movies they always say, "Go get the hot water get the hot water ready when the woman's having a baby."
Yeah.
Well, I always used to think, well, it was to sterilize things or something.
That's what I thought.
But it's actually if the mother starts hemorrhaging, they give the hot water. They put the hot water there so that it stops the hemorrhaging.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's why they get the hot water.
Very
So
good.
you're ready to have a baby then?
Well, I'm ready to deliver one.
I mean, not you.
Not personally.
Different.
Help deliver one.
You want to carry on here?
Yeah, go ahead.
C is indications, inflammation, non-acute injuries, and infections.
So indications is meaning where you're going to use the treatment, that you can use the treatment such as, and precautions, D, I know you haven't read that yet, also take into consideration, you can call it contraindications. So you have indications, what the treatment is good for, and you have contraindications or precautions, what you should not use this treatment for. Cancer patients in particular, you don't want to do hydrotherapy on them because if my understanding is if they got cancer in an isolated area, you're going to open up those blood vessels and you're going to have it spread throughout the system. So you want to really treat it in another way. Now there are some cases where when I was working at one facility, I was doing I was doing the bath treatment on cancer patients, and one person in particular, and it was really just a relaxant. She was really in stage 4 or 5. She was at the end of the ropes, and it's really just a relaxer and give her peace kind of thing. But you just don't want to do that as a point. But you got to know, and you got to have your doctor's orders, and you got to know what you're doing before you just, ask your patient first what's going on before you just jump in there. And you got to know when is a good time and when is not a good time. So you can make mistakes.
It'd be good to have a medical examination just prior.
Well, yeah, they would do that. But for the common cold or the flu or a chest infection, simple stuff like that, you know what you're doing. It's different and it's simple. So go ahead, you can read D.
Engorgement, acute inflammation and injuries. Parts in cast, poor circulation, deficient sensation, or paralysis.
Paralysis, yeah. So that's your precautions. Okay. In consideration to your hydrotherapy on your blood circulation. Now, this is just, again, it's talking about your blood vessels and so forth. When the actual diseases, like there's diabetes, okay, and I'm hoping we'll come across it in our notes at point. If I don't, you'll read it in your own. You're not going to do general treatments on diabetic patients because they usually have neuropathy, if they do, in their lower extremities, and they don't have the ability to feel the heat, and so you have to use a lower heat on them because you could cause burns, blisters, and which then they have a harder time to heal from. So it's an issue. When there's no sensation or they just don't have the feeling, like when you do a hot and cold, you get the reaction from cold to hot, that tingling, they won't have that. So you have to, and to get a decent treatment with the hot and cold, you have to have your water at a certain temperature to really make it worthwhile for the patient. But with diabetes, you got to be very careful, and the water temperature for heat has to be much lower than what they would suggest normally. That's why.
If you get a hammer,
Yeah.
I'll show you which toe to hit, and then you'll understand what that means. I deal with that.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, did you read cold?
No, not yet.
And does everyone understand the 1 to 5, the different precautions? Do you want me to explain any of them? We're all good? Okay. So cold, could you go ahead, read it?
Primary effects. Vasoconstriction lasts a long time. It takes extreme cold to produce vasodilation. Decreased blood flow, decreased capillary pressure, decreased volume of part.
Okay. Decreased blood flow, capillary pressure, volume of part. So that's your blood flow. Vasoconstriction. Okay. Very good. And then the last part, go ahead, read that slow.
Vasodilation, no congestion, decreased blood flow. Increased vessel muscle tone. Increased capillary pressure. Decreased lymph formation. We use cold application for edema. Cold can decrease protein loss by 10%. No resultant engorgement or edema with a cold application.
Okay. Any thoughts on any of that? And then on the back, under the same section for cold, part C, for indications, I'll just read it real quick. Acute inflammatory congestion, so it's for sprains, over large vessels in hemorrhage, your carotids, following thyroid, dectomy. Thank you. Slow following. No, I like to know what that means. We'll look it up later. Do you know what it is?
No, I'm just thinking it's a surgery of the thyroid or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, removal.
Removal of the
Removal.
Removal of the thyroid?
Like
like a tonsillectomy is you're removing your tonsils, so this is thyroidectomy.
Okay.
Well, that wouldn't be good.
Okay, so slowing at a resting heart rate over 100 beats per minute. Slow arresting heartbeats. And that's what you were asking. If somebody's heart rate was rapid, you would put some ice on it to slow it down. And alternate hot and cold benefits and effects. The patient receives the benefits of both hot and cold application with the disadvantages of neither. Congestion of heat is overcome by cold. Less tendency for edema because of cold. Purify body of toxins. Increase vasomotor tone. Increase circulation greater than with heat alone. And that's your benefits of the hot and cold application. And then the indications is you're not going to work on fractures, or you will work on fractures, non-acute sprains, lymphangitis, blood poisoning, and chronic infections. So you can work on those things. Okay, moving on. There's a nice study in here on hydrotherapy and malaria. I don't want to read that. So if you're ever in a place one day and somebody comes to you with malaria, you can do that treatment. It's a hot blanket pack, actually, what it is, and it's a good one. Okay. So it's almost 10:30. We'll just do a little bit more reading, then I'm going to get into some quick demos here. So the physiology of the skin, contributations. Okay, so the skin, it's
27.
Sorry, page 27, my apologies. Protection, temperature regulation, secretion, sensation, and respiration. Looks like there's some Spirit of Prophecy quotes there, but you can look at them on your own time. And then B, composition. If you guys want to say anything or discuss any of this, please do. This is kind of boring, just reading. I'm sorry. But anyways, unless somebody wants to read too. I know it's being recorded. It doesn't sound good, but anyways, whatever. Composition, epidermis, acid mantle, cornified layer, dermis, connective tissue, hair root follicles, nerve endings, sweat glands, and blood vessels. This is the physiology of the skin. So this is what we all have to work with when we're applying the hot and cold to our bodies. What we're expecting, how this will be dealt with. The skin has been called the keyboard of the hydrotherapist. I would almost say that for when you do massage therapy. It's like a lump of clay and you're the artist and you're molding it into what you want. And at the end result, you've got a very happy patient that doesn't, perhaps no more pain in the end. Through the blood vessels of the nerves in the skin and the connections they make with the blood vessels, the nerves of the internal organs, particularly every part of the body may be influenced by the applications of to the skin surface. There are many small muscle bundles found in the true skin or dermis. These are principally in connection with their hair follicles. The muscles that are attached to the hair and are called erectores pilorum. They consist of smooth muscle fibers and are involuntary. The elastic tissue serves as tendons for these muscular bundles. Contraction of hair molecules causes the hair to stand erect, producing little elevations of the skin about each. This particular roughness of the skin is known as goose flesh. This condition may be brought about by a cold application or chilliness. Even extremely hot application may cause goose flesh. When these hair muscles contract, the skin becomes blanched due to the squeezing of the blood out of the blood vessels. The capillary blood vessels do not possess a muscular coat, so these muscles of the skin help to perform the work of the capillaries. The venules of the skin are much wider and are capable of holding much more blood than the arterioles. So there's your explanation, pretty much, when your hair stands on end. Fight versus flight experience, or you're cold, or in some heat sensations. The skin also contains an enormous network of lymphatic vessels, mostly capillary lymphatics. The large lymphatic vessels are collecting trunks, have a muscular coat as the same blood vessels, and contains valves smaller than those found in the veins. On Sunday, I'm going to bring my felt board down here. I should have done it today, then I could have pointed to the human body of how these blood vessels are, what we see inside of our body. I've got the felts upstairs, and I could have shown you that in color. It's very vivid and beautiful. The venules of the skin are much wider than and are capable of holding much more blood than the arterioles. Venules is the veins, and the arterioles will be the arteries. The skin also contains an enormous network of lymphatic vessels, mostly capillary lymphatics. The large lymphatic vessels, or collecting trunk of a muscular coat in the same as the blood vessels, contain valves similar to those found in the veins, while contraction of the blood vessels is due chiefly to the muscular coat, yet the capillaries, which possess no muscular coat, are capable of altering their size. And they all have a function. Blood flow through the skin has two functions: the regulation of the body temperature and the supply of nutrition to the skin. If the blood flow to the skin is very rapid, a large amount of heat is transmitted by the blood from the internal structure to the skin and is radiated off. Special temperatures regulating mechanisms, thank you, from hypothalamus activity, the sympathetic nerves. The sympathetic stimulation causes vasoconstriction and holds heat in the body. The blood vessels are usually dilated without sympathetic stimulation. The hands, feet, ears have special muscular wall vessels, arteriovenous, venous, anastomosis, I was close, which connect arteries directly with the veins. The blood then bypasses the capillaries. This keeps them from being frostbitten when exposed to the cold air. This is your protection over the physiology, you can read it. 87.5% of the body heat loss occurs through the skin. Heat loss from the body occurs by radiation. Okay, by radiation. 60% conduction, 18% evaporation, 22% with a temperature of 70 Fahrenheit. I think 70 Fahrenheit is about 22 Celsius or something, 21 Celsius, 20 Celsius? 21 Celsius? Yeah, I think so. Okay, there are two types of perspiration. We feel sensible perspiration. Insensible, we lose 1.5 pints a day. Each gram removes half a calorie of heat. The total amount of water excreted by skin is approximately double that of the lungs. And we covered a little bit of that yesterday when we were looking at drinking. It said 2 liters, but if you're losing 2.5 liters of liquid, drink more water because we have to stay hydrated. That's why I drink 3 of these, not 2 of these. I try 2 a day at least. 3 liters a day. I hope we're coming to the end soon. Does anyone would like to do a little reading, please? We're on page 29. We're going to look at the peripheral of heart, the peripheral heart. Thank you. Go ahead, someone. Joe.
During health, you go ahead. During health, the blood vessels of the body are not of a constant, unvarying size. They become large, dilate, then smaller, contract. These alternate changes occur 4 or 5 times a minute during rest. As contraction occurs, the blood is forced onward. When dilation takes place, they again fill with blood, which is sent onward by the next contraction. This pumping action of the blood vessels is so powerful and is such an important factor in the circulation that the smaller vessels as a system have been called the peripheral heart or skin heart. If the nervous control of the blood vessels is interfered with, in other words, if the vasomotor nerves are paralyzed, the blood vessels dilate and remain dilated. This causes them to be over-distended with blood, which has only the force of the heartbeat to push it along. The slower circulation which results causes the part to become dusky in color and cold. This is what occurs in paralysis, such as follows apoplexy. A somewhat similar condition, a weakness or paresis of the blood vessels, is found in neurasthenia, infectious disease, and fevers. The failure of the blood vessels to perform their part to the work of the circulation throws an added burden on the heart. For this reason, the heart works under much stress and at a disadvantage, but may not itself be at fault. Many cases of so-called heart failure are in reality failure of the vasomotor mechanism and not primarily of the heart. There are many ways in which the work done by the peripheral heart may be increased in efficiency. All sorts of applications to the skin excite contradictions in blood vessels, so that the usual rhythmical changes in size occur more rapidly or are greater in extent. It is these changes which occur in the blood vessels that constitute the circulatory reaction.
Thank you. I had a paper that I wanted to go over called Heart Health. It's not finished. It's in my computer. I was hoping to get it done for this week to do it, but it didn't happen. But anyways, it explains a lot more of what you were just reading there in this paragraph here. It's really quite interesting to learn more about the heart health. So here's a map down here, and it's the microcirculation of the blood when pumped from the heart. Okay. Hydrotherapy, exercise use, opens. So it's my understanding that it's through the blood vessels that the heart pumps the blood away from the heart, circulates through the body, and then comes back through the liver to cleanse it, and then back up to the heart again and through the arteries, and then out again. Is that correct? Pardon me? Do you have those felts? Do you have a felt board?
No, but you can put them if we have some.
I have a felt board. It's upstairs.
Oh,
Do you want to go grab it quickly? Okay. It's got, it's a whiteboard on one side, and it's right by the window up the stairs on the way to my room. It's tucked away in the corner. Somebody stuck it there. Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any thoughts? No? Shall we read on? Reflex effects on page 30.
me read it?
Yep.
The internal organs do not function independently. In addition to the control exercised by the ductless glands and the regulatory substances of the food, vitamins chiefly,
Yeah.
during health, the nerves exercise a continual influence over the activities of these organs and structures of the body so that they are accelerated, retarded, or even positively changed. It is possible to stimulate these nerves as to increase the activity of a function. On the other hand, by the cutting off of the nerve supply or the depressing of the nerves, the activity of an organ may be decreased. This is especially manifest in blood vessels, since changes in their size and action are very apparent. One experimenter found that ice applied to a nerve trunk caused the blood vessels of the area of the pia mater of the brain to contract. Ice applied to a small skin area of the head or face causes the same result, while warm water produces opposite conditions, viz. Dilation of blood vessels.
Yeah. Do you want to set it up? Okay. We'll just continue reading while you set that up.
Another
Well, I didn't bring all of mine. You go ahead and keep reading if you
Another
want.
found that the blood flow of one hand was influenced by hot or cold stimuli applied to the other hand, and that this reaction was always the same as the local effect of the heat or cold applied
don't
to
need
the
all of
opposite
these.
hand. Heat dilated the blood vessels and increased the blood flow, whereas cold contracted the blood vessels and increased the blood flow. In these nerve conditions, the distant effect is the same as the local effect of heat, cold, or other stimuli. While strong stimulation of any nerve in the body may cause changes in all or nearly all the blood vessels in the body, yet these changes in size are most pronounced in certain parts which have the most perfect nerve connection with the parts stimulated. For example, an ice bag applied over the stomach may cause a brief change in the size of the blood vessels of the brain, but the pronounced and lasting changes are in the blood vessels of the stomach. We may therefore say that for each internal organ there is one area which, when stimulated, causes the greatest change in the blood vessels of that organ. In all or nearly all instances, this area of most direct nerve connection, the area through which a maximum effect is obtained, is the skin surface over the organ.
Okay, hang on a sec. Just catching up to you now.
Okay.
What did you read? What did it?
Well, basically,
What did you get
by
at?
the ice, it has the most effect, although it still has an effect on the rest of the body, to either dilate or,
And you're talking about stomach stimulation
Yeah.
here?
yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to treat it at one spot, you can target one spot on your body, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
when it has the most effect, but it's still going to affect your whole body.
Yeah.
Not as great, right? So you do it over your stomach, it's going to affect your stomach, but it's still going to have a minimal effect on your brain, which is, because it's all connected, right?
Right. And so I don't have the stomach. It's in here. I'm just wondering if I should put it up. So this is a map of the body. I'm sure everyone has seen this, right? This is a fun thing. I have one too upstairs. Oh, here's the heart. Well, here's part of it anyways. Just, I don't know if you can see it really well from back there, but it gives you some better understanding of how the blood vessels and the arteries, the arteries are blue and the the arteries are red and the blood vessels are blue. And then it has the circulation of the movement of the blood, and then I should have done this before, but anyways, it just gives you a pretty good idea of how things are. So, yeah. Anyway, line it up like that. And we talked about the capillaries over the stomach, what you were talking about here. You got your intestines, and it's these little blood vessels in here, the capillaries, and they don't they have their function of when we're moving, when the blood is moving throughout the system. I missed half of what you were reading here because I got sidetracked, but that's okay. So you get the idea, right? Okay. Did you finish reading this part? Okay.
Nerve impulses. That's where I left off.
Okay, go ahead.
The nerve impulses which influence the internal organs are carried over definite nerve paths, beginning with the skin. The stimulus produced by heat, cold, electricity, or mechanical means is conveyed to the spinal cord by sensory nerves. In the spinal cord, the impulse is conveyed upward or downward to various levels by these sensory nerves, whose ends touch cells in the spinal cord, and which start over impulses over outgoing nerves. The impulses which are destined to influence an internal organ are passed over nerves which enter the chain of sympathetic ganglia and so pass with the sympathetic nerves to the internal organs. These effervescent, outgoing, sympathetic nerves are connected not only with the blood vessels of the internal organs, but also with their muscles and glands. Because of these connections, every function of the body may be stimulated or depressed by influences arising in the skin. When an application to the skin affects a part through nerve connection, it is said to produce a reflex effect. A reflex effect is an indirect effect produced through nerve connection.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions about this? It's not kind of straightforward, but it's the physiology of what happens when you're applying a hydrotherapy treatment of some form over the stomach and how your blood vessels are reacting to it in size-wise, as well as the blood flowing from as it needs to circulate through the system, and then how it affects the body for the healing purpose or the effects of the hydro.
So if you're paralyzed from the legs down and you can't feel anything, then it doesn't do nothing?
I don't think it would. I think, I've seen it happen in dogs where a dog was paralyzed, it got hit by a car, and then it lost all of its muscle mass, and through hydrotherapy with exercise, not hydro, but water treatment, walking through waters and learning how to swim, and then rotation, and then massage and stimulation, all of that, right? It actually regained it. It was attached to one of those wheels, and it was able to walk by a wheel, and then eventually in the water it was moving its own, and then swimming, it was wearing a life vest and swimming. I really think if a dog can come out of that scenario and be back to normal, like almost normal, like at least 98% normal, then a human could as well. But I'm not a physiotherapist, so I don't know.
They had a lady, I think she was Chinese or Korean, and the baby was born with virtually no brain. So they thought the baby wouldn't live, and she just did all the functions that she could do with the baby. They said it was going to die, but it didn't die. They said it wouldn't see, and it could see. So basically, this mother just basically every day was just totally stimulating this child.
Yeah.
I don't know how far through they had virtually no brain.
Okay.
Because of the love of the mother and childhood.
It doesn't look like we're going to get into anything fun today because we have to go through all of this. I know, but there is Sunday. We can just...
We could read it on our own, too.
Yeah, do you want to read it on? What I wanted to show, actually, what I really wanted to show is, okay, first of all, do you have an understanding? It's pretty basic what the heat does to the body. It opens up, it vasodilates. And then we had seen how the effect of the blood, it travels through. And when we talked the other day about in the physiology of when we were talking about blood, the blood needs to be healthy. It needs to be healthy by proper nutrition. Proper nutrition brings healing through the blood to the various parts of the body. And then if the blood is not healthy, it pools, it's not known as alive blood, then you've got cold extremities, and you got to help that, right? Diabetes is one disease that you're known to have bad circulation, especially down in the feet area and the legs, maybe in the hands. There's another disease out there, or a condition, it's called Raynaud's. Do you know what I'm talking about? Reynolds.
Yeah.
Poor circulation, and I've seen it a lot in hands where the skin is white and their hands are cold and stiff and there's no circulation there. You know, they're still trying to function.
It particularly affects smokers.
Okay. Yeah, smokers get it, but non-smokers get it too. And there's an Adventist family that I know of very well who's pure vegan, pure healthy, pure the whole 9 yards, and it's a genetic thing run from the family, and all the children in the family have it, and it affects them to this very day. And it doesn't matter how healthy you are, you're still going to have it. It's poor, but maybe with the smokers they might have it worse off and really have it off. So anyways, there is that. So we have the understanding, we have a little picture. I didn't go into detail. I like to you just by reading this, you will have a better understanding anyhow. What I wanted to show briefly today is some of the treatments, and everyone in here basically has the basic hydrotherapy, right? Most of the hands went up. So what I wanted to do, because I only have 2 days to teach hydro, on Sunday I want to continue with a couple of more treatments or something else. But what I brought here today, okay, do you have experience with fomentations? The hot packs, hot and cold? Doing treatments? No? Oh, we need to do more reading, Joe? No.
I've heard of the theory.
Okay, but you know,
You can just
Put it on yourself,
explain it.
you've done it, treated yourself with a hot, like peas or something, right?
okay,
What is
Yeah.
fermentation?
I know. I want to get into that, but let's look at a few more thoughts here. I can't just jump into it if you don't know that part. Theory is theory.
Yeah, the theory.
I can't just jump into it with. I want to get to the part of fomentations. 42. Because I only have 2 days, and I don't want to just read because that's blah. Fomentations, page 42. Let's have a look at that. Okay, definition. A fomentation consists of a local application of moist heat to the body surface. Material for fomentation. Fomentation cloth may be made of a blanket material, 50% wool and 50% cotton. Other material may be used, such as a mattress pad, 2 or 3 layers sewed together, size approximately 1 foot wide and 1 yard long. The outer dry covers are made from wool, army blankets, and you can get wool blankets at any secondhand store for cheap. And then it just gives you the dimensions and size. The equipment you need is 3 or more fomentation cloths and 6 fomentation covers for insulation. And your insulation would be a towel, and I'm going to show all of that momentarily. Sufficient towels, washcloths, sheet, blanket if needed, basin of ice water, fomentation tank heated by steam preferably, other heating sources, microwave oven, sprinkle fomentation cover and place in a plastic bag and heat in the oven, which I've done that, both not in the actual oven, but I've done it in a microwave, and I'll explain that in a minute. Regular oven, sprinkle fomentation cloth. Oh yeah, I have done it in a regular oven, I remember. It's not a good idea, I don't think. Wrap in aluminum foil and heat at a high temperature for about 25 minutes. It does burn, actually, and it's not really, that's not a good one to consider. Towels may be wrung from boiling water. Use plastic or rubber gloves. Use towel next to patient's skin. Okay, and the effects and indications. Analgesic for relief of pain. In internal organs by reflex action, and Wayne just read it nicely, so if you remember what he was reading. In muscle and joints and counter irritation. Derivation to increase blood flow. I can't pronounce these words. Peripherally, in order to relieve congestion internally. Stimulation. You want to stimulate like a cold tonic. Increase blood flow to a part for short 3 to 5 applications, intense, which may be followed by cold. And anyways, whatever I'm reading here, I actually will open up the massage table on Sunday. I'm going to pick a student, a female student. You're going to wear clothes. We're going to do a dry run of a treatment I really would like everyone to get in their head by memory. And then you can practice. And today we're going to do something else. To use when we're using these fomentations, these pads are a fomentation. This is what we're looking at, right? This is what you can buy. I've got a friend who makes them. She lives in Tennessee, and they're quite thick. They're about a quarter inch thick. You can go around. You can tell I've burned it. I have done it in the oven, wrapped it up in tin foil. It gets extremely hot, and it's not good.
Maybe that
I'm
400.
familiar with this process a fair bit. What also does work is a steaming iron your clothes.
Yeah, really?
Just heat up your pad, steam it, and apply it.
So you press the steam button on the iron, you steam it that way?
Just don't burn the cloth. Steam it through so that the heat gets into the cloth, just like you would microwaving it or putting it in a hot bath.
Yeah.
Right, same idea.
Yeah, but doesn't it cool off rapidly? You'd have
Faster, but yeah,
You'd have to
if
wrap
you're
it up
doing a
quickly.
small area, if you're doing a small piece, let's say for your lower back or your tummy
Yeah.
or the back of your neck or
Thanks.
whatever.
Do you guys want to see it?
Easily get away. I'm familiar with it. I've gone through therapy for so many years.
Okay, that's good.
It is just another quick alternative as opposed to burning your cloth in the oven. Or
Yeah.
blowing up a microwave and accidentally putting tinfoil in there. And
Okay.
it does happen because you have to wrap and you have to.
Yeah. So anyways, the one I just passed around is a professional one that when you go to all of the places that have a facility where they treat patients using hydrotherapy, you're going to see that. And this is a homemade one that I got my husband to make for me because I didn't have the time. Do I have to move over here? And it's not quite a foot wide, but it's made out of a bathtub thing you stand on when you're in a shower.
Just doubled up?
It's just doubled up. That's a good size. A terry.
A towel around it.
Yeah. No, it's just that.
All the mats.
Sew together. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's as well just as efficient as if you were to buy the professional ones. That works just as well, and it saves you money. Go to Value Village. That's what I done. I bought a big bag for $5 of towels, and we made one, right? Simple as that. And then it was talking about, okay, what I,
I have a question.
Yeah.
How is that better than just using towels? I usually use towels.
just towels. Well, the problem is, well, I've used towels. When I was in South America, I was doing hydrotherapy there, and I only had towels. And because we didn't have the steam process that would have been more beneficial, I usually like to use steam. And I'm going to show you how to do your own steam bath here. I boiled hot water on a stovetop. This is your stovetop. And a big pot of hot water, and I had the towel in there. So you put it on your stovetop. It's full of boiling water. What I had it, if it was long enough, I had it twisted like this because it is extremely hot, even through rubber gloves. I made sure that most of it was submerged in the hot water, and then I would, with rubber gloves on, because I did it a few times without the gloves, you strain out the water as quickly as you can. But you want to be set up right away at the same time, and this is your wool blanket. And you'll go to secondhand stores to buy quality wool blankets. They don't, I think these came from India. We went to India and they're famous for their wool, cotton and silk. And we got some really awesome cheap wool blankets out there and cut them up, and we use them here. It's a quality wool. So anyway, okay, so I'll show you that in a minute. So the idea is what the paper's going to tell you if you continue reading it. Oh, she's gone away and she wanted to see this. I'll have to show it to her again after. So if you're doing the hot water effect with a towel, you're going to have it in there. It's going to be hot, and you have it in there for a little bit so it gets right through all the creases. The ends are going to be dry, and you're going to string it out as much as get as much water out as you possibly can. You got to work quickly. Open it up, and then cover it up in the wool blanket, because the wool blanket retains all the heat. In there, you roll it up, and then when your patient is ready on the bed with the, okay, so it had talked about, excuse me for a sec, it had talked about layers of towels or some kind of, between the fomentation itself, you never put the actual hot fomentation, this part, on the skin. You'll definitely hurt the person big time. And you also never put the wool blanket directly on the skin either, because you will burn the patient. So you need 3 to 5 layers of single towel layer. So a single towel layer is a single layer like this, and you would fold it up where you have 3 to 5, depending on your patient. There's 4 layers right there, right? So you would put that on, not on top of the phone. You put that on top of your patient first, and then you have your hot fomentation ready. You roll it out, you cover it up with another towel or a blanket, and you have it sitting on the body for 3 to 5 minutes, depending on what application you're doing. I'll have to show Katya.
Put another towel on top?
Or your blanket, a towel on top, because you want to retain the heat. The idea is you're doing 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold, and I never unfortunately got to that part of the reading. I really needed to.
Hot and cold?
Is that
Something?
I have to get into that. I'm just showing you this part. We have to do a little bit more reading to get to that, but I'm really running out of time right now, and I just wanted to show a few things, because this isn't. Okay, so it's 12?
Yeah. I know. The time is beginning.
Okay, so we're going to pray, but on Sunday we're going to pick it up. We're going to step back about four steps. I want to read more about the fomentation and about the application. I'm going to have the massage table out. I'm going to get a sister to be my patient, and we're going to actually do a really good treatment. But before we do that, I want to show some of the other ideas of what I had in mind, okay? Let's pray. Joe, do you want to pray, please?
Sure. Loving Father, thank you for the time we have to learn these applications and the things you would have us to learn more on hydrotherapy, so we can use them to further your work and for your honor and glory. We just thank you now and continue to bless us this day in Jesus' name. Amen.